The Buffalo Bills signed offensive lineman Will Clapp. Who is he? What does he bring to the table? And how does he factor into this offensive line? We're going to break down all of that today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Well, folks, welcome in. The Buffalo Bills have added another player. It's Will Clapp, a free agent offensive lineman. And yes, his name is Will Clapp. And people already can't resist themselves on social media, of course, linking together a player named Will Clapp and Sean McDermott, who obviously likes to clap a lot. And so the memes are out there in abundance, and that's fun. And apparently Will Clapp is pretty cool about all that, and from what I've read about him, he's got some personality about him. He does some Twitch streaming, and he embraces his name, so he enjoys the name Will Clapp. But anyways, that's his name. Care a whole lot more about what he is as a football player, and so we're going to break that down for you here today on this episode. So let's do it. Will Clapp signs a one-year deal with the Buffalo Bills. We don't have the terms of the deal, but I figure it to be a near league minimum type contract. He's 28 years old. He turns 29 in December, so this will be his age 28 season. Was a 2018 7th-round pick by the New Orleans Saints out of LSU, and at LSU, he was a 3-year starter. He started 36 games, 13 of those at center, 12 of those at left guard, 11 of those at right guard, was a 2-time All-SEC selection, and his dad also played football at LSU. And in fact, his father and him, Will Clapp, are the only father-son combination of permanent team captains at LSU. So you would think there's a lot of football character in Will Clapp, who comes in at 6'4.5", 311 pounds, has 31.25-inch arms. That's very short. I know that you don't need as much length on the interior, but even for an interior offensive lineman, 31.25-inch arms is short. 9 5/8 on the hand size. Has an RAS score, which is a relative athleticism score, of a 3.74. And that is a very, very low number. A perfect score is a 10. You see most players kind of coming in at like a 7 or an 8. I mean, my guy's at a 3.74. He had very poor athletic testing. Spent 2018 through 2021 with the Saints, and it's notable that in 2018, his rookie season with the Saints, Joe Brady was an offensive assistant with New Orleans, and so there's some level of familiarity with Joe Brady being part of that staff that drafted him and was with him for his rookie season. And then throughout his time with the New Orleans Saints, he was kind of on and off the practice squad, getting called up, sticking on the roster for a few weeks, going back to the practice squad. He bounced back and forth quite a bit. But then he spent the last 2 years with the Los Angeles Chargers, signed 1-year deals in both seasons, and was a regular part of their 53-man roster. So far in his NFL career, Will Clapp has appeared in 65 games and has 21 starts. 11 of those 21 starts came in 2023, last year, with the Los Angeles Chargers. And the opportunity for him to play was opened up when the starting center for the Chargers, Corey Linsley, who's been a very good starter in the NFL for a while, he had a season-ending health situation after week 3. And then so Will Clapp then started every game from week 4 through week 15. And then in week 15, he suffered a knee injury that forced him to miss the last 3 games of the season, but was still able to log 11 of his 21 career NFL starts. So as I mentioned, 65 games played for Will Clapp, 21 starts. Here's the snap distribution in terms of where he spent his time on the field so far in the NFL. 198 snaps at left guard, 1,090 snaps at center, 93 at right guard, and then 263 as a jumbo tight end. And so I think that's notable that most of his snaps come at center. We're going to get into it here in just a second, but I think that's obviously the best place for him to play. But it is notable that he has a fair amount of snaps, 263 snaps as a tight end, which is a role that exists for the Bills based on the David Edwards role last year. It's been the Bobby Hart role in the past. It's been the Tommy Doyle role also before. So I think he's in line for that type of opportunity potentially with the Bills as well. So we'll talk more about Will Clapp's skill set and how he fits onto the offense on the other side of it. So be sure to stick with me. Say goodbye to busted brackets because FanDuel lets you bet on every game of the tournament. Whether you're betting on a big upset or a one seed, it's time to go dancing on America's #1 sportsbook because right now new customers get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 to use on point spreads, money lines. You can even pick who's going to win it all. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and bet on college hoops until they tear down the nets. All right, folks, welcome back. I watched the film. I woke up on Saturday morning. I spent it with Will Clapp. We watched 3 games, the game against the New York Jets, the game against the Detroit Lions, and the game against the Green Bay Packers. So he started 11 games, and that was kind of like sort of the middle stretch of games. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to really get myself acquainted with what he's done in the NFL. I scouted him coming out of LSU. I had a 5th-round grade on him. And I think there's a lot of growth from his time at LSU, but a lot of the same issues that I saw. So let's talk about it. What stood out to me on film when watching Will Clapp this morning? I would say functional strength. I think that's a strength of his, right? Functional strength is a strength. He's got a firm anchor in pass protection. He plays with good leverage. He absorbs power quite well, which is important as a center. You have to be able to set the depth of the pocket. And I think he does a good job of not getting walked back, not conceding ground, and just overall has a pretty firm anchor in pass pro. He can absorb power pretty well. And then I think the functional strength also shows up in the run game where he's got enough power to move bodies. I think he's got pretty good core strength. He can accelerate his feet and really kind of create some displacement. And so I appreciate the overall power that he plays with. I didn't see him overmatched with power in the 3 games that I watched. And then when I look back at my scouting report for him coming out of LSU, my favorite trait for him was functional strength. So it's good to see that showing up on tape, and that's an important part of what he offers to this offensive line. I'd also say that Will Clapp is a smart player. Playing center, you're uncovered a fair amount, in particular in pass protection, so there's nobody right on top of you. And so you're more in a help role where you can help either guard. Your eyes need to be active, kind of being aware of pressure packages and stunts and, you know, where the front 7 is going to attack the pocket. I thought he was pretty sound in terms of knowing where to help. He has very attentive eyes, timely responses to pressure, to processing pressure looks. I thought that was all positives for him on film. In addition to just general timing and execution, he's asked to work a lot of combo blocks in the run game. I thought he did a good job of understanding that timing. I think he did a good job with angles and set points. And, you know, he's got some physical limitations, which I'm going to talk a lot about here in just a second. But I thought he helped himself overcome some of those physical limitations by good footwork, good angles, how he pass sets to put himself in positions to cut off guys. Sometimes when he has to cut off a one tech or even sometimes a 2-eye, he's able to take a good angle to position himself to execute those blocks that kind of stress his movement skills. But I think he did a pretty good job of overcoming that by taking good angles. Even when he was asked to work in space, you know, climb to the second level, some longer poles, he doesn't have a ton of juice, but taking good angles and getting to his landmarks on schedule was impressive given just the very underwhelming athletic profile that he offers. So I thought that was the best part of him on tape: functional strength and then just football IQ. I think that showed up in terms of what was good about his film. He does have physical limitations, and that does show up on film as well. First of all, I mentioned at the beginning, he's got very short arms. That shows up on tape where he can be outreached by offensive linemen, but I also, defensive linemen. But I also thought he did a poor job of being really kind of committed to two-hand punches, and that does himself no favors given his short arms to be able to be consistently throwing like two-hand strikes. And a key fundamental of good hand technique as an offensive lineman is using your hands as independent contractors. They have to be able to operate as independent contractors. And so if that doesn't make sense to you, I literally invite you to do this right now. Take both of your hands and punch them out in front of you at the same time. And think about blocking somebody. So you're just throwing both of your hands out at the same time, a two-hand punch, and you're going to try to block somebody. Then do the same thing, but then work each hand independently, and you are drastically in more favorable positions to be successful because you're not throwing two hands at a time. You're using your hands as individual independent contractors to work the rep and work your hands into leverage points on the defensive lineman, on their chest, and it's a lot harder for them to displace your hands, right? Trench battles in the NFL are in a lot of ways about hand fighting and how you can get your hands fit on your opponent. And when you throw two hands at a time, it becomes difficult to do that. When your hands are able to work independently from each other, you're a lot more successful. And for a guy with sub 31 and a half inch arms, you'd like them to be over 32. You'd like them to be closer to 33. And we're missing some length here. I think being able to use those hands more independently would make him more effective. And I like to think that Aaron Kromer can unlock a lot of that for him. I'm a little surprised that in his, I was watching his like 5th or 6th year in the NFL, that was something that was not as prevalent on tape, was using those hands as independent contractors. So that's something to be mindful of. And then just the lateral mobility is pretty limited. Like I mentioned already, he overcomes this better with good angles. And, that in particular, when he's stressed with more real estate, he's got to kind of get to a landmark. He's able to use his ability to calculate precise angles to his advantage. But when his footwork is stressed in a tight area to quickly slide laterally and stay square in front of a twitchy dude, that's where it gives him some trouble because there's less real estate. He's not able to really rely on that timing and that ability to use the angle to his advantage in a tight area where there's a body on top of you and that guy's twitchy and can move side to side, and it puts stress on your ability to move side to side. That's where I thought the athletic limitations kind of showed up. So, you like the functional strength, you like the football IQ. I think there's some technical stuff that he needs to improve upon, and he's got some physical limitations that are always going to be there that he has to deal with when he's trying to execute in the NFL. So how does he fit the offense? Well, I think he's a functional reserve center. That's what he is. I don't think there's like a lot of ceiling for him to develop into. I don't think he's a threat in any way, shape, or form to like win a starting job for this offensive line. But what he is a functional reserve center. Now, I think he's way more appealing to me at center than guard. And the reason for that is there's just less one-on-one battles. When you are a center, there's not as frequently somebody lined up directly over you that you have to deal with one-on-one. And you have bumpers on both sides of you with your guards. At guard, you got to be able to handle things a little bit more one-on-one. And I think the limitations for Will Clapp are overcome more at center and exposed more at guard. I think he can play guard in a pinch, but I think if you have him on the field, you want it to be at center. I also think that he's in line for the David Edwards role. from 2023 as a utility blocker. I think Tommy Doyle's in that conversation as well. But that's a role for the Bills offense. And I think Will Clapp, if he's kind of going to be preferentially a one-hole backup at center that in a pinch can play guard, that flexibility to play some jumbo tight end is appealing. Just like with David Edwards, where he was kind of like, okay, only a guard backup. What more can you offer this team? All right, you could be the jumbo tight end. I feel like that makes a lot of sense. And also, he's competition for Alec Anderson. And I'm very intrigued by Alec Anderson, who was an undrafted free agent out of UCLA, spent his first season in Buffalo on the practice squad. Then he makes the active roster, shows a lot of versatility, really good-looking player in preseason. I like the trajectory that he's on, but there's no way that he should be the assumed primary backup along the interior offensive line. There's no way that he should walk into 2024 and that be the assumed role for him. He needs legitimate competition, and I think Will Clapp can give him some of that. And let's be mindful, this interior offensive line depth took a major hit with the moves that the Bills chose to make this offseason. Ryan Bates gone. Mitch Morse gone. David Edwards is in line to be the starting left guard, so you felt like you have two awesome backups in Ryan Bates and David Edwards for your interior offensive line. That picture looks a lot different right now. So this move helps to add an experienced and functional reserve to the interior of your offensive line. I'd still be thinking about an early offensive line investment for the Buffalo Bills in the draft. I like David Edwards. I do. I've talked about him as a sufficient starting level player in the NFL. I think he's going to be a fine answer at left guard. But if there's a guard that you love at 28, if there's a guard that you like in the second round, I wouldn't hesitate at all, because not only do you get legitimate competition there, but you're seeing these guards getting paid just so much money. I mean, we are getting $20 million a year guards. And Osiris Torrence is on a trajectory that I think is going to put him in. I mean, if Robert Hunt is a 5-year, $100 million guard, what's Osiris Torrence going to be after 3 more seasons if he takes the types of jumps that I think he will, right? So I think it's good to have some options in the pipeline. And I think you want to get stronger with that interior. And I think David Edwards should have some legit competition to be a starter on this offensive line. And I don't know that. I don't look at any of the options that are currently on the roster right now and feel like they're any threat to him. And I'm interested in bolstering this interior offensive line because I think candidly it's worse. This is not as good of an interior offensive line situation right now than it was in 2023. And it was an absolute strength of what you had going on between your starters and your depth. You took a step back there. It's time to retool. Will Clapp helps, but I still think there's more work to be done with this interior offensive line. So there you have it. Will Clapp added to the mix. Get your Sean McDermott clapping jokes out there. I'm sure that's going to be a big part of this deal moving forward. But a functional reserve center added to the mix for the Buffalo Bills. All right, folks, thanks for being here today. I hope you enjoyed. Hope that this conversation helps you get acquainted more with the newest Buffalo Bill, Will Clapp. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.